We are back now with the Senate Minority Leader in the state of Massachusetts, State Senator Bruce Tarr from Gloucester. And Senator, welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, Rick. Nice to see you as well. I hope you're inside. You obviously are, and you've got the heat on because it's a little bit chilly outside today.
Today. I just got in from being outside and taking a long walk. 20 degrees when we went out, but not much of a wind chill, so it was nice. Got a couple ski days in already. This is my favorite time of year. Listen, do you have a fire? I don't know where you are today in the Senate or at home, but do you have a fireplace in your home?
You know what? I do here, and I have never used it. I've never lit a fire in it.
Well, it's Abraham Lincoln's birthday, so
It might be a good excuse to get outside, and that kind of activity would keep you warm on a day like this, for sure.
Split some logs, absolutely. Okay, we need to get into what's going on at the State House, and we were talking in our pregame warm-up here about the discussion of Senate rules for the new session. What does that mean?
So, Rick, this is an important subject that I don't think ever gets enough attention. So at the beginning of every legislative session, the House and the Senate have to adopt rules by which they're going to be governed. And when it comes to the Senate this year, there are basically three sets of rules that we had to act on. The first are the rules of the Senate, which obviously govern our operations. And then there are joint rules, which govern the operations of the House and the Senate. And we make our proposal, the House makes their proposal, and then we reconcile the differences to get a set of joint rules. And this year, there's something in addition to that, and those are emergency rules. And so at the outset of the pandemic, we adopted rules which allow us to meet without being physically at the State House. Now, some people still are. I generally am every day, but most of my colleagues are not. And we needed to have a special set of rules so that we could still conduct business and get things done that needed to be set in place for a whole variety of reasons. And so yesterday we had our debate on all three sets of rules. And credit here goes to Senator Joan Lovely from Salem, who is the chair of the Temporary Rules Committee. I was a member of that committee, and we worked together to put out a set of rules. And yesterday we had a debate. And in that debate, I offered many amendments to try to increase transparency and accountability in the way that the Senate and the House and the Senate operate. And while I'm certainly disappointed that I didn't get as many of those changes passed as I would like, because essentially I was seeking more time for members and the public to be able to read things that we're going to take up in the sessions, I did get a few amendments that I'm very pleased with. One of them, for instance, says that when we do a procurement of more than $10,000, we are going to put that on the state's open checkbook website so people can see how the Senate is spending taxpayer resources. And then we're also able to get some additional legislation that I was a co-sponsor of, ensuring that all of our sessions, whether they be formal sessions or informal sessions, get broadcast via being live streamed so that people can see what's happening in our sessions. So we did make some progress, not as much as I would like, but it's very important. And again, the rules govern the way that we do public business. And so I think they're very important. Yesterday was an important day. We adopted the three sets of rules. We're still waiting now for the House to make their proposal on the joint rules, and then we'll move forward.
Senator, the transparency thing, is that something that you've been thinking about or working on for a long time, or has that been sort of exacerbated by circumstance?
It's interesting that you should say that, Rick. So I've been working on it for quite a while, and in fact, the Senate has been working on it for quite a while. And over the last several sessions, we've made important changes to increase transparency. And the most notable one is we post our committee votes in the Senate on the web so that you don't have to go somewhere else to look for them. They're easily accessible. We were trying yesterday to push further in terms of transparency. And one of the points I made in Senate floor debate was actually the one that you just referenced, that there is a heightened awareness right now of the importance of the activities of government for a variety of reasons. And we should take advantage of that heightened interest by making things more accessible, giving people more notice about when they're going to happen, and giving them more opportunities to read pieces of legislation. And so again, we made some progress, not as much as I would like, but I'm going to persist and continue to try to pursue those things as we move along over the next few years.
I want to ask you a question about something that I learned a long time ago called executive session that involved teacher salary contracts and so on. In a recent bill that the Senate was working on, there was closed session. It was everything was tight to the vest as you work through that with different committees and so on. How does that work, Senator, in terms of what's available to the public? Because you have certain things that you discuss, and I don't know that in secret is the right phrase, but you do it maybe without other interference, perhaps. So how does that work, and when does that take place, if I may ask that?
So in the legislative parlance, there are a couple of different kinds of executive sessions. One, for instance, that's very common is that when a committee on, let's say it's the Committee on Education, holds a hearing, the public testimony part of the hearing is an open session, but then it moves to executive session. But an executive session in that context does not mean it's going to be closed to the public. It means decisions are going to be made as opposed to the receipt of testimony. And so the committee will decide to recommend that a bill pass or recommend a bill not pass, that kind of thing. But then there is the concept of executive session where something sensitive is going to be taken up, and those sessions are closed to the press and to the public. And one of the most notable examples of that is most often when a conference committee is meeting, and again, that's when you have 3 members of the House and 3 members of the Senate working to reconcile the final version of a bill. Oftentimes that conference committee will vote to go into executive session, which closes the discussion from being open and available to the public and to the press. Now, there have been occasions where I will vote against doing that because I think the subject needs to be publicly discussed. And so those are far more controversial. And in those executive sessions, again, there is no public visibility. And in fact, one of the rules that I was trying to change yesterday, Rick, is the rule around when a conference committee needs to file its report. Currently, the rules say that a report has to be filed by 8 p.m. to be considered no earlier than 1 p.m. the next day. And the difficulty that I have with that is, number one, 8 p.m. is an arbitrary time. I believe it should be 5 p.m., which is the generally recognized close of the business day. But more importantly, right now, that rule gives people 17 hours to review something that might have been in progress for months behind closed doors. And I think the public ought to have more than 17 hours to review it, as well as the members of the legislature that aren't the 6 that produce the agreement. And so what I was trying to do is to say there should be 72 hours to review conference committee reports, because more often than not, they have been the product of an executive session where no one has seen what's happening until the door opens and suddenly you have a conference committee report. I think you ought to have some more time to look at that.
I am enlightened, and Ms. Clark, my civics teacher, would be proud of the explanation. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I didn't do well in civics, but I had to ask the question. Well, I guess next up, Senator, is a little bit of controversy in the papers today about people trying to break in the head of line to get the vaccinations with respect to being caregivers, for the 75 plus population. So what's the latest view from the Hill?
So there's a lot going on with vaccinations and a lot of concerns. The biggest problem, and sometimes it doesn't appear to be so, is still getting enough vaccine to be able to aggressively inoculate the public and the population here in Massachusetts. But there are a lot of other problems, and those have been surfacing, and it has been a very rocky road here in Massachusetts for vaccinations. So, for instance, one of them has been around the issue that you referenced of having folks that are over 75 who are now eligible be able to get to a vaccination site. And so in order to facilitate that, the administration most recently said, well, if someone comes with you, if they assist you, they can get the vaccine as well. That raises a whole host of issues about who that person is and what connection to you they have, and just a bunch of things. So The administration is trying to work through that. In addition, there have been problems with the state website where you try to go and book an appointment, and trying to make that easier. And so one of the solutions to that has been to stand up a 211 number with a call center, so that someone who's over 75 can make a call and get some help sorting out that website and sorting out making an appointment. A third issue is that we have a number of different clinics that are happening, and that creates, in a way, a fragmented system where there's no centralized coordination about when appointments are going to be available and to whom they're going to be available. And so, those clinics are clearly responding to need, but we have to, I think, do better at having more coordination of who's vaccinating whom and when, so that we make sure we follow the priorities that have been set forth by the Department of Public Health. So we still have a lot of work to do on vaccinations, and we are getting more people vaccinated, and that's very positive, but we've got a long way to go in terms of the systemic approach that we've been using.
Well, it seems to me that ironing out the wrinkles is where you're at now, because the thing is rolling along. So again, I think it's a very optimistic time.
It is. At the highest level, the thing that feels positive about this is we're finally able to go on the attack in terms of the virus, that we're able to do something proactive in addition to wearing masks and washing our hands and maintaining distance. But the fact that we're actually able to get a vaccine, I think psychologically feels very good, that we're doing something to push back against this virus. And we are getting more folks inoculated, there's no doubt about it. We've got a very ambitious goal in Massachusetts of trying to get to 85% of the population above 18 years old. We're making progress, but you're right, we are trying to iron out the wrinkles, and that will take time, and it's hard to have patience because you really want to get the vaccine. Many people do, and they want to get it as soon as possible.
Yeah, we have to maintain diligence and patience for sure. Senator, I guess the final item on our agenda here has something to do with filing bills in this upcoming session. Do you want to flesh that a little bit for me? Did you hear me at all?
You froze for a minute.
Okay, let's try it again. Bill filing, what's that mean in the upcoming session?
Sure. So, one of the most important dates in the legislative calendar is the day when bills have to be filed to be considered filed in a timely way. And in this case, it's next Friday. So by February 19th, members of the House and the Senate need to file all of their bills for the upcoming legislative session, or the one that we're in. So basically for the next 2 years. And everybody's been working very hard on that. We got a little bit of an extension this year because of the disruption that COVID-19 has caused. But every one of us is thinking about things that we'd like to try to address in the session between now and its end. And so we're all writing bills, getting them filed. And again, just to touch on civics a little bit, you must file a bill in order for it to be guaranteed a public hearing. So if you file by the deadline, it must have a public hearing. Now, you can still file a bill after the deadline, and we oftentimes do that, but it just means the bill has to take some additional steps. It has to be admitted by the House and the Senate, whereas if it gets filed by the deadline, it's automatically admitted and sent to a committee. So next Friday is a very important day, and you'll see us all scrambling to try to get all of our bills filed so that they can get a public hearing.
I gave you a test from time to time. I hope you don't test me on that stuff, because I won't do well. I appreciate it.
I won't reciprocate and give you the kind of test that you used to give me on math, which oftentimes made me sweat a little bit.
All right. Trying to end this thing here.